Influence used to be about showing up, sharing consistently, and building trust over time. But now we have AI tools that can show up for us, they can post, schedule, and even mimic our tone. What does real influence look like in that world? Andy Lambert from Adobe, the founder of ContentCal, has spent years helping leaders and brands grow their visibility on social, and he's been right at the center of how AI is reshaping that process. So, in our conversation today, Andy explores why consistency still matters, but credibility matters even more. So, we talk about how to blend automation with genuine presence and how to use AI to scale your ideas rather than impersonate you. Andy, great to have you here. AI can already plan, write, and post at scale. So, why do people still follow people? I mean, what makes the human voice still valuable?
You mentioned the word trust. That kicked off the segment of this conversation. And trust could be described in a formula, which is reliability, how frequently you show up, plus relatability, as in, how much as an individual do you like that person, plus usefulness. So is that person generally helpful? And take that equation and then divide it by time. So basically, is this someone that is helpful? Is it someone that is someone that you really like? And also, is this someone that you generally find value in their content? And do they do this with consistency? Right. So do they show up time and time again? So AI can do most things better than humans, but what it can't do is tell stories that have deep meanings. And the relatability piece is such a key component in how we build trust at scale because, of course, being useful, turning up consistently, all that stuff is known to everyone. But turning up with a narrative that is deeply and intrinsically yours is the critical piece here. And it's important not to see ourselves versus AI either here, right? AI is absolutely an enabler for all of this, as we'll get into. Um, but it's the stories that make us deeply human and the narratives that we have and the experiences that we've had and our perspectives, because everyone has their own little narrow slice of the world that they see. And it's our job to unleash our narrow slice of the world onto others to share our perspectives and viewpoints, which ultimately, builds trust at scale.
Do you think AI marks the death of broadcast style social? Or could it actually be the moment social media gets reinvented?
Well, broadcast should never have been the way that we approach social anyway. So social is social for a reason. Obviously, you know this as well as anyone, Andrew. Um, but what we're seeing is like just the death of the follower and the death of the general feed, right? And that's been a trend that has existed for a while, and that's been accelerated by TikTok, then Reels, and now with all of this kind of AI first content that is still in its infancy, but it's just going to explode, right? Just look to the what's top of the app stores. Well, at least it was last week, which is OpenAI Sora, which is just
Mm.
really AI content consumption. Humans are funny creatures, but ultimately these this trend of social is inherently becoming less social. Like this broadcast to a feed, follow people, etc. That has had its day, I actually think, and you can see this in the decline in time spent on social. Now, I'm a person that absolutely adores social media,
Hmm.
as you have, but times are changing, and that's for sure. And this future of social is more about depth and breadth, where we follow fewer people but go deeper with them and follow them on different spaces. Those spaces might be LinkedIn, but they also might be Substack. They might be a podcast, and a podcast doesn't need to have like a million downloads. It just needs to have a real clear narrative that is targeted around what you stand for and who you seek to serve. The day of like social media becoming like, oh, the sign of success is going viral. Yeah, I just don't I just don't buy it. But then again, this is just my kind of like narrow slice of the world. I care about B2B. I care
Mm.
about smaller communities. I care about business growth. I've never got into social for fame. So, and unfortunately, we've kind of classified success in the wrong way. And unfortunately, in thinking like this, we've always thought about our mindset has been in the wrong place, which has been we overfixate on the stuff that we say and underfixate on what other people say about us and the kind of the communities and the word of mouth that we build.
So what does this shift look like day to day when AI is in the mix? What actually separates a genuine thought leader, for want of a better phrase, from the AI assisted noise that's now everywhere?
Well, yeah, AI is kind of it has you know lowered the floor basically because actually should raise the floor but lowered the ceiling. So it's now given everyone an opportunity to create, which is great, and I love this. Still, more people expressing themselves, amazing. But it now writes better than us, it can scale better than us, yada yada. But it's tends to be quite surface level. Now, again, I don't believe in a narrative of like this or that. It's always a bit of both. Is AI good or is it bad, etc. It's always a bit of both. And some people do wonderful things with no AI assistance. But for me personally, AI is a core part of everything I write on LinkedIn. It's my thought partner. It's the way I kind of stretch my thinking and address any biases, any bits where I'm blind to at the moment. Because like, why would you not? And I think that's an important point. Is like, I think over time, especially if you're a thought leader and you're demonstrating your expertise, if you're an expert in something, when you're expert, you know your blind spots. You know the things that you're like, am I using confirmation bias on this?
Mm.
You know, this is what people that are non-expert do. They're like, this is how it is. It's that or that. The more you understand a subject, the more you understand what you don't know. And that I think that is a really important point that really separates the LinkedIn influencers, which is like SEO's dead. This is the way we do it. No, it's not, you fool. It's like uh, but when people don't understand critical thinking, then you end up just going into that whole kind of it just feels AI. But AI is so important for us to like get deeper thinking and create deeper outcomes as a result. I mean, other people might be a better critical thinker than me and not need to use AI, but I find it incredibly helpful in addressing any unconscious bias and that kind of stuff. Um, and that, as a result, helps create like content with meaning. Now, does that mean that I could create a post that I would write myself? Would a post I wrote myself do better than a post that just got generated with AI? I'm not entirely convinced whether that would be the case. And when I say doing better, I mean, the surface level vanity metrics. Would it get more likes or whatever?
Mm.
I'm pretty convinced AI could write a post. If your objective is just to go viral and just do LinkedIn fame, AI is fine. Crack on with it because it can write better hooks. It's trained on better data, etc. Ask it to study the top 10 best performing posts of that week on LinkedIn and create your hook and a topic very similar to that. Cool. Done. Easy. You gamed it. Congrats. But what happens off the back of it? Probably very little, because what do you stand for? What's your purpose? And how importantly does all of this narrative turn into business? And that is the key thing about thought leadership.
But at a surface level, we can all spot these AI-ish patterns, the M dashes, the polished phrasing, the tone. I mean, have you ever used AI and thought, this looks too polished, too artificial? I mean, what do you think causes that feeling?
There's patterns that people can spot, like the ones that you mentioned, but another very common writing pattern is like AI writes compelling sentences, but they're also quite uh, I'm going to call them like empty calories because they sound good, but they don't really do anything, right? So it's like the narrative of like, it's not this, it's that. It's always that as a pattern. Sometimes they're great, and sometimes it's kind of relevant to leave in, but it's again, we can't shortcut expertise and a point of view on a subject matter. And that strong point of view is where it starts. That is rooted in your perspectives and understanding. So that's the core. And typically, my AI workflow has always been I speak my thoughts because I'm a verbal thinker. Like whenever I'm trying to deal with a problem, I look like I look a bit weird because I pace around my house, speak out loud. It's just the way the only way I figured out I can process my thoughts. Um, but now I just speak it into ChatGPT. So it's all of that nuance, of which now the time it takes me to create stuff has definitely collapsed, because it means that taking my big narrative that I've just waffled into ChatGPT, just using
Mm.
basically as a voice note, it's then made it into something that actually is salient. I'm like, give me all of the key points from what I've just spoken about, clean up what I've just said. I will then read it, refine it, then ask it to go into a LinkedIn post, then refine it again. And it's just all about a case of like, I just don't think you can one shot this. You can't be like, create me a post about the future of SEO for LinkedIn. It's going to turn you out something that's a bit crud, quite frankly. But if you have either some great narratives and a great point of view on this, you're like, I want to create a post on the future of SEO. Here are my thoughts. Insert voice note. Here's some supporting data. Turn this into something that has like 3 key takeaways based on like XYZ. Then your output looks much better. Then of course you're going to do your final editing nuance, which for me ChatGPT is far too like the outputs are too I was going to say, I'm trying to find a better word, but I'm going to say authoritarian. It's like, this is the way. Where my narrative is much more self-effacing than that, which is
Mm,
like,
mm.
here's the thing that I've seen in my view. What do you think is the type of thing? And I just kind of soften it.
Yeah.
I round the edges on it, and then it's ready to go. But again, it's hugely personal. But yeah, that's the way I kind of manage both using ChatGPT as like an efficiency enhancer, but not replacing one, my core expertise, or two, my tone of voice.
You've often said, Andy, that consistency matters more than frequency. Does that still hold when AI can churn out posts daily?
Yeah, I mean, uh, I think the delightful thing is that again that whole kind of is it black or is it white type of narrative. Um, we've always had this debate in social, quality over quantity, etc. Like which one's better? The fact is, it's sadly it's both. Really, it's like the more you do, the higher your results are going to be. AI does allow us to unlock a lot more narrative from our mind. Our expertise has been or can be more unlocked than it ever has been before, right? Because in the same, I gave an example of my workflow. Not saying that's the right way of doing it, but irrespective. Um, but again, like going back to that consistency point, which goes right back to the start of the conversation, this is all starts with you having a very deep conversation with yourself of what do you want to be known for. There is an overlapping Venn that exists between uh, the expertise that you have and who you seek to serve and the problems that they face. There's an overlapping Venn, which is your kind of this was in a book called Good to Great, which is one of my favorite business books, called The Hedgehog Concept, which is like,
Mm,
what is the thing that is undeniably yours? So once you've understood your hedgehog concept, I think it's borrowed from the Japanese philosophy of ikigai, basically
mm, mm.
purpose, right? So once you understand that, that is everything, because um, it grounds you in like your purpose, your mission, your values, and all that kind of stuff, which is irreplaceable. Um, and then you can kind of cut away a lot of that noise of like, should I use AI or shouldn't I? It doesn't matter, because if you're staying true to your purpose and what you seek to serve and what you stand for and what you represent, if you're staying true for that, doesn't matter whether you use AI or don't, as long as you're staying true to that core, center of that Venn. And then that also then translates into that whole kind of consistency versus frequency, because consistency is going to be nailed because you've got that center of that Venn locked and loaded. This is what I stand for. And frequency will drive better results. Show up more often, better results. So we don't really have that challenge that we had before, which is it takes a ton of time to write a good quality post from scratch.
Mm.
Sometimes I just get so frustrated that I'm like now 90 minutes into trying to pen 500 words, and I'm like, what? Like, and it just gets frustrating by that point because you just haven't. You're like, I've got something in my mind, and I can't unlock it, and now we can actually properly unlock this stuff. What I'm saying is nothing new to anyone, but it just means that we just don't have to have that debate of like, do we have to turn over our lives into, being LinkedIn content creators? No, the fact is, like, if you've got strong points of views and narratives, you can get like a good quality post done in 20 minutes a day and post every day if you wanted to.
It is part of the challenge that people haven't done the deeper identity work. I mean, understanding who they are and what they actually stand for.
For sure, that's like the hardest part, and very few people do the hard yards that it takes to do that, because it requires just some deeper thought around it, and it requires us not to be like, oh, I've got to get a post out today on something. It requires us to take a step back from it and go, look, I'm not gonna I'm gonna go dark for a week. I'm not gonna post anything on LinkedIn, and that's okay. The world ain't gonna stop. Everything will be fine. But I'm just gonna take this week just to truly hone in. Let me reflect on, what I've heard from my industry, where I'm expert. And to be honest with you, I often, for these critical things where I'm like, I'm just really struggling with something, like there is nothing better than AI to get you thinking here, because you're like, all right, I mean, here's what I would do when I'm kind of creatively blocked. I'm like, here's a bunch of data and data points. Here's like all of the transcripts from like customer feedback calls over the last year. Um, tell me what people are struggling with the most in my space. Cool, we got that. Now I'm going to start a conversation with it to be like, well, here are my like top performing posts. What do you think is like the common thread between them? Okay, cool. So now we've got like common challenges from our audience and common threads of like the things that have resonated most deeply. I'll then feed in some of the comments from like the top performing posts. What are the kind of things that we're hearing from non-customers, the challenges, the things that work, either the challenges they're surfacing or the things that worked well from the post that I shared. And then we're starting to figure this out. And then I would ask like ChatGPT or whatever. I defer to that one, but it doesn't matter, whatever your
Mm.
model of choice is. Like if you had to create an overlap between like my expertise, look at my LinkedIn profile, look at all the things, here's some podcasts I've done or whatever, anything you've done publicly. Here's the things that I've done. Here's the things that I enjoy that give me energy. You now know the stuff that my customers in the industry are struggling with. Where do we think the overlapping then is? It might give you like a whole bunch of ideas, and I'll be like, well, expand on that. Tell me why. Give me some citations. You end up with it's going to take you a couple of hours for sure, but what you're doing, you're basically working with a therapist to like go and getting inside your mind. It just requires you to have like that open-mindedness to see new information and pivot based on that new information. And sometimes that's quite uncomfortable, because oftentimes both, it's just an inherently human trait where we look for confirmation bias for the things that we have believed before. But what we're actually looking for is like, okay, I appreciate I might actually have an uncomfortable conversation with my AI here, where I'm going to be told some things that I've thought that have worked, but aren't working. And I'm actually having this very same conversation for me personally. I've been doing this social media roundup for 7 years,
Mm.
every week on LinkedIn, and I'm now at the point of like, it's a sunk cost fallacy. I don't think it's actually delivering the results for the things that I actually want to be in this next chapter of my life. And I now feel a weight of responsibility of like, I've been doing it for so long. Should I just do it? Like, and that's actually a very difficult conversation to have. Of which, just so you know, like no one's got this figured out. We all go through those journeys of like, at certain points we're going to need to reevaluate. And man, that was a very long response to your question, but I think it's a really important thing of understand how we understand what we seek to stand for, but that also will change over time based on your own career trajectory or objectives, whatever it might be. And I feel exactly the same.
I mean, when people talk about AI skills, do you think these deeper thinking skills matter more than simply, I don't know, learning the latest model or tool?
I mean, like AI is pretty useless unless you give it context. So, and that is the kind of key message for all of this. And it's funnily enough, it's quite timely because I was just looking at some data from Statista about marketers' use of AI, and it looked at the kind of volume of that in 2025, what they're using it for, and it's all for um, like creating copy from scratch or doing edits. I didn't see one single point about like data analysis, like insight creation, strategic guidance, the things that it's actually really good at. Like nothing beats AI for chomping through buckets of data and then going, here's the most salient points. Because as a human, we do not have the mental capacity to
Mm.
process all of that information and distill it into something from all these disparate sources. But we're not using it. And I think this is probably like, it's a very, I don't know, I'm thinking twice about saying this, but it reflects like a challenge that we have in our society is that we're so used to um, us just taking an action and delivering on them. It is a um, unfortunately it's redolent of the industrial age where in schooling etc we're told to say, all right, just give me an answer, give me a question and I'll go and answer it. But in fact, what very few people are actually skilled enough about doing is asking very good questions and critical thinking. No one really learnt that unless you did
Mm.
debating at university. You probably haven't really thought much about this, like especially like Socratic questioning, which is like, what if I believe the opposite? Like, what are the things that would need to be true in order for me to believe this? All of those things that allow you to get deeper into it. And using AIs, and the final thing I'm going to say here, forces us to think more like a manager, think more of like, because a successful manager is all about how can you ask the best quality questions of those people to help yield the best quality responses. And yeah, few of us are good enough. And from what I've observed, this is a very broad statement. So, it's just an opinion. This is just an opinion. But our skill is basically in asking high quality questions. That's it.
Before we close, what excites you the most about this shift? I mean, what does it mean for personal brand building, employee advocacy, and the chance for people to express their expertise more clearly than ever?
I appreciate throughout this course of conversation, I probably made this sound more complex than it needs to be. But you know, what I'm excited about, and this is kind of making sure we have like a real positive note here, is that what I'm excited about here is like we've never had it so good in terms of helping us express ourselves online and helping us display our unique expertise, and especially given what's happening with the rest of social that we spoke about earlier, the kind of more kind of micro community following like those deep personal human narratives. Social media is going back to how it should be, which is like, yeah, those more deeper human narratives. And I think that means wonderful things um, for like employee advocacy use cases, personal brand building. And I've never been more encouraged about how important this channel is in growing our businesses. And the final thing I'll say is like, don't feel guilty about it. I've seen enough people go like, oh yeah, kind of like AI is their dirty secret for like creating content. No, it's like, no, it's genuinely very, very good. And at some point it's going to become like kind of irresponsible not to use it because you have the world's corpus of information to help inform your thinking on stuff. So to just be informed by our narrow slice of the world we see is actually irresponsible. So, think about it in those two lenses. Like don't get enamored with the ease, but also don't feel guilt about using it because it is the world's best tool. We've never had anything so incredibly valuable should we use it in the right way, like we've just been talking.
Andy, thank you, thank you. That was a very grounded, practical take. You're reminded that visibility isn't vanity; it's part of the job, and that AI should sit behind our thinking, not in front of it. I think will land perfectly for this audience. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you.